B'tovach, Shavua Tov, a good week. We begin a new week, which means new divine energy, a new light. On the first day of creation, God said, "Let there be light." That repeats itself every single week, right? From after Shabbos through Sunday, God is imbuing with his divine kindness a special divine light. Let there be light. Let there be light in our lives. The light of Hashem, the light of God that illuminates our pathway, illuminates our very selves, our very being. And we do that through the study of Torah, doing mitzvahs, of course, but through the study of Torah, and in particular, the Torah that we engage in, each and every one of us at all times, every day, the study of Tanya. The Rebbe Marash, the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Reb Shmuel, said that our learning of Tanya is like atzig was kuktoif the lavona, as like a goat that looks at the moon. In other words, when a goat looks at the moon, it understands the moon. It understands the moon has light from the sun that it reflects, understands what the moon is and anything about it. Not that I do myself so much, but probably a little more than a goat. But when the goat looks at the moon, it understands nothing. So the truth is, when we're learning Tanya, we're understanding. But that, how much are we really getting? How much is it really penetrating our minds? Well, it is. But when the goat looks at the moon and maybe doesn't understand the moon, but one thing it does get is illumination from the moon. So we are learning Tanya. It's definitely illuminating our lives. Even though we may have been watching this class here for several years. And if we really got it, then, we'd have it clear. But we're watching again and again. And I'm teaching it again and again. Because as much as we get it, we need it again and again to penetrate. Right? That we understand it well. But one thing for certain it's doing, it's illuminating our path. It's for sure illuminating our lives. And that's a big blessing. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We're in chapter 3 of Igeres HaTshuva, the epistle of penitence, return. That's what we're learning. And we have brought two important ideas. One is the basic concept of tshuva, of penitence, of return, means to have regret for anything that we've done that's wrong. We own it, we regret it, and we're resolved that we're not going to go down that path again. That we're going to accept the yoke of heaven, do what God wants, what he needs from us, we take upon ourselves. So that is dealing with the past. And we can bring a rectification, we can bring a atonement, a cleansing to the past. But that's God being forgiving. Is there a concept of God forgetting? As we say, forgive and forget. So is the concept of that God should look upon us as if we haven't sinned before we did anything wrong. So we explained back in the As we explained, um, as we explained that to be before God, lirotzein, pleasing before Him, like we were before, like an innocent baby, that we are like that before God, then we need to bring a gift. Times the Holy Temple, we brought a sacrifice. No longer sacrifices, so we give a bit of ourselves. What do we give of ourselves? Fasting is what we spoke about. So the question of the fasting, if someone gets angry, you got to fast 151 times. You miss a prayer 61 times, right? Now, what happens if you repeatedly get angry? Or the example he gives over here that if wasteful emission of semen by a man, so you have to fast 84 times. Well, what happens if it happened 10 or 20 times? Is it 10 times 84? So there is a debate by scholars that came after the Arizal, who gave us the number of fasts that are necessary to bring, again, not for tshuva, not for penitence, not to be forgiven, but to be looked at as that innocent child before the sin. And so the question is how we compare, because the fasting is in the place of the sacrifice. Sacrifice is you're putting an animal, which is instead of the individual. So now you're giving your blood and your fat through fasting, right? That's the animal from within is on the altar of God. So how do we liken it? Do we liken it to a sin offering? And for a sin offering, then it would be for every sin you bring. So it would be, if it was 10 times, 10 times 84. If it was 12 times, 12 times 84, if it was for that particular sin of wasteful emission. Or do we look at it like a burnt offering, which would be for a positive commandment? They would bring one offering for many positive commandments that were not fulfilled. So there's a debate on that. The accepted decision is 3 times. Why 3? Because 3 brings a permanence. So 3 times 84 would be 252, would be what a person would fast as accordingly. However, says the Alter Rebbe, this applies only to very strong and robust people who have physical health who will not be harmed by repeated fasts, which was generations of the past, says the Alter Rebbe. It's interesting. This is 200 years ago, and he said that was generations of the past. All the more so, we are weak today compared to previous generations. Furthermore, he says, but anybody who's affected by fasting, that's going to suffer pain or an illness, God forbid, in our contemporary times, it's forbidden for them to fast a numerous amount of fasts, right? Because it's going to bring harm to the individual. In previous generations, not everybody fasted. And in previous generations, talking about, 1,500, 2,000 years ago, that they were very strong individuals then. And yet, most people did not fast repeatedly because they were not robust. They were not healthy enough, strong enough to be able to do that. And furthermore, if someone would do that, and not only you shouldn't, he's saying the Alter Rebbe, but if you will do that, you're called a sinner in the Talmud. You're a sinner, especially if you're someone who studies Torah. Because if you're going to fast and you study Torah, you're not going to be able to study Torah properly. It's one thing if you're working and you're fasting, so maybe your work will not be done as well. Even that's also an issue, but all the more so if you study Torah. It's going to weaken you, prevent you from studying Torah properly, therefore you shouldn't fast. So then what's the remedy? We're in a weak generation. I needed to eat something before the class to give me strength so I could teach better. Or weak compared to bygone generations. So, what is the remedy? The remedy is chatotcha tzedakah. Redeem your sin with charity. Give tzedakah. Codifiers of Jewish law say that instead of fasting, that you would give, back in the day was 18 large Polish coins. And the wealthy should add to that if they can. It was like, the value of a meal or the day's meal, right? That's what they would give, right? You save the money of not eating, so give that to charity. So this is what we do in our day and age. I'm going to continue with this thought, but think about it for a moment. What is charity? Charity is taking your hard-earned money that you worked hard, blood, sweat, and tears, right? Or even if you didn't work hard for it, but what could money do? Buy you your next meal, which is increasing your blood and fat, right? It's increasing, giving you life. And what are you doing? That which gives you life, you give it to someone else. So you're diminishing, so to speak, in you, in your vitality, and giving tzedakah instead. So we see how that ties in with the idea of fasting, because fasting is diminishing your blood and fat, right? It's diminishing your energy. That's why only those who are very strong can fast. Obviously, we're talking about fast that you take upon yourself. We're not talking about obligatory fasts like Tuesday. There's a fast day, 17th of Tammuz. In 3 weeks, there'll be Tisha B'Av or Yom Kippur. Those are fasts that a Jew is obliged to fulfill. We're not talking about what you're obligated. We're talking about what you take upon yourself. So the fast is diminishing in your vitality. And that's based on the offering on the altar, the animal, which is in the stead of my animal on the altar of God, that I'm putting on the altar of God the fat and blood of the animal, which then all of that is not tshuva, it's not penitence, it's not returning to God. That's after you do tshuva, after you own your sin and you verbally say to God, I'm sorry for what I did, and resolve that you're not going to do it again, and have the yoke of heaven upon you to fulfill what God needs from you and wants from you. Now, in order that I should be liratzin, that God should look at me favorably as he did, as I was in innocence before the sin, then there's the concept that we're speaking about over here of being charitable, giving charity. Okay. I hope that's clear. Let's say hello to Akoy in Lima, Peru. Julia is in Pennsylvania. Joseph is in New Jersey. June in Australia. Virginia in Calgary, fellow Canadian. Jeff is in Michigan. Carmen in Texas. John, North Carolina. Liba, Davida, New York. Elise in West Virginia. Sandy in Michigan. Tim is in Texas. Brett in Pennsylvania. Ken is in Colorado. Joe is in Washington State. Stan in London, England. Mordechai in Michigan. Simcha in Florida. Daphne in South Carolina. John, North Carolina. Irma in St. Martin. Fred in Uganda. Michelle is in, I forget, Susanna in Miami. Diane is in Arizona. Zar is in Malaysia. Dana in Dana, I think in Washington. I remember. Madeline in New York. I miss somebody. Is there such a thing? Jeff is asking, is there such a thing abusing this? So sin and then do tshuva and charity to clear it with God over and over. What do you mean by abusing? I'm not certain what you mean. Abusing giving charity? By the way, whoever is the recipient of the charity doesn't feel abused. They feel hopefully grateful. So I don't know what you mean. Like, do you think, oh, you mean, let me understand, Jeff, you mean like, okay, I'm gonna do something bad, doing something negative, I'm doing something that God's not pleased with, and I'll just give charity afterwards. We're gonna get into that afterwards. If that's what you mean, that's and the abuse. That's a good question. Actually, a very good question. So abusing is the wrong way to phrase that, but saying that you sin, knowing that you can always absolve. Yeah. So that's an excellent question. That's called echte v'oshuv. The sages speak about that, and we will speak about that. I don't remember if it's the following chapter. I'm sorry, I don't recall. I don't recall. Davida, what is the difference between being forgiven as we fast on obligated fast days, as oppressed to face day we choose to fast on? To face day? To fast as oppressed to fast day we choose to fast on. I'm not clear what you mean, Davida. Please. So we have Lori with us in North Carolina or South Carolina? Remind me. Is suicide a sin? A huge one. Huge sin. You know, taking someone's life, taking your own life, the greatest gift we have, that God gives us life. North Carolina. Okay, Lori, thank you. Yeah. Hopefully, when we learn Tanya, it gives us such strength from within that not only is suicide like so distant from us, so distant, because you're learning Tanya, you feel alive, you feel connected. How could there be a thought of such, permanent disconnect? permanent's not the right term, but such a disconnect. Yeah. What is the difference between being forgiven as we fast on an obligated fast day as opposed to the fast that we choose to fast on? Um, hmm, hmm, not certain. Maybe they're similar. Maybe there's similarity. Julie, the command in the Ten Commandments is thou shalt not murder, not kill. By the way, just nuance difference. Because killing is a blanket statement. Murder means murder, right? Premeditated murder, as opposed to, you know, fighting back because your nation was attacked. So to fight back is how could that be allowed if you should not kill? But if it's not murder, then fighting back the terrorists who is fighting you becomes a mitzvah to do. Jeff, I would love to hear your thoughts and those of your audience on the Haredim and the military service and the IDF. I saw a post on Facebook where someone said that the Torah says that the Milchemet mitzvah, a war in which we are attacked, needs everyone needs to serve. Do you agree? Oh, excellent question, Jeff. So to fight a war, to fight a battle, one needs various components in the army. You need the foot soldiers, you need the Air Force, you need the Navy, you need the tankisten, those who fight with the tanks, those who are, you know, you need all sorts of those who fight. Right? If you don't have the Air Force and you have your military go in, well, we saw that happened, and there were a lot of um, sacrifices, a lot of lives lost. Because first you got to bomb out with the Air Force, and even now today you need the drones before that, right, to check out, especially when you're going into a close quarter. That could be booby trap. So you need all of it. Now, there's something unique about the Jewish people. We're fighting a war now in Gaza, in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran. That's like crazy when you think about it. And yet, miraculously, what's going on is unbelievable. You know, God is with the Jewish people. There's no question about that. What's unique about the way Jews fight a battle? Different than any other nation. Well, we had it in last week's Torah portion when Balak was afraid of the Jewish people coming and conquering his nation. He knew he couldn't stand up to them. They already defeated much more powerful nations. Sichain, Oig, powerful kings, much greater than Moab and Balak, the king of Moab. So he knew that the way of the Jews, he found out, is with their mouth, with prayer. Okay, so fight them with the mouth and curse them. And therefore he hires Bilam. course, that's transformed from curses into blessings. But the way of the Jewish people is with their mouth. Prayer, words of Torah. That is our not only guiding lights in the times of life, of regular life, is the Torah and mitzvahs, but it's our guide in battle too. When we battle against the enemy, we need Torah and mitzvahs to be strengthened more than ever before. And if we weaken in that, oh, that's terrible. Hence, the Rebbe in the 1967, by the Six-Day War, instituted the Tefillin campaign to go out in the streets, and especially with soldiers, to put on tefillin. But with every Jew, put on tefillin. Put on tefillin. Because we need the merits of the tefillin. We need the merit of all the mitzvahs, and in particular, the study of Torah and prayers. We need that. That is our uniqueness. To take a gun and shoot? Well, you know, a lot of good snipers out there. But to pray and to know that our prayers and our mitzvahs and Torah study are paramount in the success of our army, that's only the Jewish people. Doesn't exist elsewhere. So if we leave that part out in the army of God, God's army that's going to battle against an enemy that wants to annihilate us, and we leave that out, we're making ourselves extremely vulnerable. Hence, and this is not a blanket statement for everyone, but those who are seriously involved in their learning Torah, in their service of God in that manner, they need to know, well, if they're involved in that, that's part of God's army. Not doing it just for yourself, for your pleasure, for your enjoyment, for your, what you're, comfortable to do. But no, this is the army of God that you're a part of. And this is your part and your function. Is that across the board, all people that are studying Torah? No. If they're not doing it seriously, then go and fight physically. But to fight spiritually, to make that anything less, is actually destructive for the Jewish people. So that's the mindset that we need to have. That makes things very different. Thank you for that. Question, Jeff? Again, it's not a complete blanket statement to anybody, but it's very important to appreciate the value, and that's not appreciated. That's part of the problem. When it comes to charity, Marianne's asking a very good question. When it comes to charity, how do we determine who to give that could count as tzedakah? Well, any Chabad that you give to, that's tzedakah, because Chabad is helping every person to get closer to God. And there's poorness is not just poorness of in money. Poorness is of the mind, is the real poorness. Uneducated, unlearned. So if you give to Chabad, you know for sure you're doing well. Thank you, Maria. How do I feel about women serving the IDF? And though they can have some functions, They can have the functions, but women in the army, it's not so simple, you know. Um, but yes, they can have a function. Should they be out there fighting along the men? No, absolutely not. You know, is that not that's not PC, but it's okay. Torah's not PC. Oh, I think we got disconnected. Okay, we're gonna go into Rambam because I see we got disconnected.